Welcome to the Art Talks Dialogues Beyond the Cusp. This podcast is sponsored by Coltin, and today I have a very special guest. I have here Antonis Chaniotis. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for accepting this invitation because I know that you are a very busy endodontist and speaker, and sometimes it's difficult to arrange the time and to have the opportunity to talk. And it's a great joy for me to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Antonio, for the invitation. It's great to be here for this uh, podcast.
Yeah, and also I would like to thank you, Colteen, for sponsoring this podcast. It's very courageous from the part of Colteen, and sometimes companies have difficulties to understand these new platforms, and Colteen is being very innovative, and I would like to thank them for helping us doing this project. So, Antonis, I would like to understand a little bit what was the starting of your career, because you are known in the world and you've been a very big influence for me. And I look at your clinical cases and your online content since I was a dental student. But I would like to ask you a little bit, what was your life as a dental student? So you graduated in Athens Dental School in
Mhm.
'98,
That's
and
correct.
it was your dream to become a dentist. How did it processed? You were the kind of kid that loved to be in the dentist, and you helped some dentists in summer vacations. Tell me a little bit about
No,
your.
not
Uh,
really. I don't come from a dental family. Uh, as you know, I live and practice in Athens, Greece, but actually grew up sharing my time between Athens and a small island in the middle of the Aegean Sea, Paros. Paros Island, my family, all my family comes from Paros Island. So I used to spend a lot of time, especially during the summer, in this island as a kid. So by growing up in the island and in Athens, the last thing I remember from these days, the last thing I wanted was to become a dentist. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with dentistry. However, you have to understand that I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s, the society in Greece becoming a doctor or dentist or lawyer used to be very prestigious profession and highly ranked in the Greek society. So I made my effort with the exams to get inside the medical school in the beginning. But medical school in Greece, we only have very few universities, only public universities, and get inside the medical school, it's very, very hard. And the next best thing after medical school was dentistry. So, more or less, this is how I ended up in the dental school of Athens when I started my undergraduate studies, my residency, without knowing anything about dentistry. And the dental school in Athens is 5 years, the duration of the main degree. So during all these years, I, you get in touch with all the disciplines of dentistry. We have to do perio, we have to do endo, we have to do prosthetics, prosthodontics, everything. However, I was really attracted by endodontics very early, since my first years in the dental school of Athens. And actually, that's why
Okay.
in during my undergraduate studies, I had the higher ranking in the higher grades in endo, always from all the
Okay.
other,
Okay.
because I really loved this. I don't know, it worked like magic to me.
And what do you think? I experienced the same feeling because I can say also that in Portugal society is very close. It's very similar to Greece, and becoming a lawyer or a medic, a doctor is very high regarded for society.
I have to
Also,
tell you
I
that
entered. Yeah.
Greek
Also,
people and Portuguese are completely the
yeah.
same. I mean, are very, very similar mentality. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
you can
So I
understand.
can relate totally so to what you can say, and also for me, endodontics was also a thing that I fell in love since the university. I was
Mhm,
deeply inspired by my teachers that you know very well,
mhm,
Rui Pereira da Costa and José Sacramento. They
mhm.
were like heroes for me in the university, and I had a lot of admiration for them. And José Sacramento told me about a mailing list in endodontics and the
Mhm.
roots mailing list,
The
and
roots maybe.
that's yeah, and it was in that mailing list that I get to know your name. My name is Antonio, and I saw Antonis. It's funny, and I saw your cases, and since then I really respect you, and you are a big influence for me, and I'm very happy to have this conversation with you. Did you get inspired by a special teacher? It was like a book. What was the moment, or what was the sparkle that turned you as a student endodontist?
Not really. I cannot say that I was inspired by a certain teacher. However, by studying all of these different disciplines of dentistry, I was attracted by endodontics. I mean, by especially by the pulp chamber and root canal anatomy that I was seeing in the old books. It worked a little bit like magic to my eyes back then, and I mean, by looking at the various anatomies that you can have and the elusive nature of endodontic treatment. So you never know what you can find inside a tooth. It worked as an inspiration to me to dig deeper and get deeper inside the endodontic specialty. That's why my first option after finishing my dental degree was to apply for endodontic residency in Athens. And I got, in order to get in the residency, you have to give exams. So I got accepted immediately. I had the highest grades in endo because I liked endo.
Yeah,
And this is how the whole trip started. By getting inside the residency, the magic became bigger because I got the chance of looking inside the tooth in magnification and light through a dental operating microscope we used to have in the postgraduate department of endo in Athens. And this was like a milestone image for me. I mean, it changed, it shifted my whole perspective, and I really enjoyed looking through the binoculars, for a young kid, looking in the
yeah,
binoculars and doing the treatments under magnification. it was back then a new thing for me, and it was like a magical thing. So I tried since the early days of my residency to get more into microscopic uh, endodontics by
and
using a
and
method.
maybe in that time it was not that usual to use a
Was
microscope.
not
I
no no
imagine that
no it was not very popular back then. I mean, the first microscope imagine if you go back in timing, the first microscope in Greece became available around the 1997 or 1998, something like that. So I bought my first microscope in 1999, and
okay.
then I connected the microscope to the TV monitor with a Canon camera back then, and it was like eye opener to me. I mean, I could see and I could record in the what I was seeing inside the tooth, and this was really exciting. And all
Yeah,
of a sudden,
it was a global microscope, right?
yeah, a
No.
global Entre Plus global
Yeah,
microscope. It was. I still have my first microscope here. I bought this microscope 1999, and I attached a Canon camera there, and so I started recording my first videos. And back then, it was the beginning of the internet. I mean, the beginning of YouTube. The Facebook was not available back then, and
yeah, yeah,
I got invited to be a part in a mailing list of experienced endodontists around the world and very important people back then. And this mailing list was called Roots Forum. So actually, it was a server, the Roots server, that I didn't had a clue where this came from. The only thing I knew is that if I record a video or I post I post in my email, I attach a radiograph and I press send the mail. So all of a sudden, 100 endodontists around the world could receive my email with my case, and they started responding to the case. And there was this was the initiation of a discussion through a mailing list. And this was very innovative back then. Imagine, I mean, the platforms that we have today, they were not available. Even I don't remember if the mobile phone like we have nowadays that we can have internet was available back then.
I don't
So,
think so because the
mhm.
iPhone and the first smartphones, even the internet was not the same. You didn't have
Yeah,
the
for
same
me,
speed, so the world was a little bit
I mean, I
slower
don't know,
than
you,
nowadays.
Antonio, you are younger than me, but when the whole
Yeah,
thing started with Roots, in order to connect to the internet, we have to set up a dial-up connection. So through
yeah,
the
yeah,
phone,
yeah,
so we need to call and get connected to the
yeah.
internet, and it was very difficult to. I mean, the starting was
I
very hard, but it was so exciting, and being able to communicate with doctors from the other side of the world, like United States, Canada, India, or Latin America,
yeah.
and discuss clinical cases. It was something inspiring for me, and actually it was what pushed me to try harder to become a better doctor and create even better cases so I can share the cases with my colleagues and help them. Or I would, I was always online, eager to receive cases from other people so that I can learn new things, different things, and different way of thinking than the what I
Yeah.
What was the normal teaching in the residency in Athens Dental School.
Imagine, that's so funny because we have more or less 10 years of difference. So when you when you completed when you completed your post graduation student, your post graduation, I entered the university. So we
Okay.
saw the same thing, the roots mailing list. I was a student,
Hmm.
you were already an endodontist, and both of us in different stages of learning
Hmm.
could get information from there, and it was a big influence, of course, in different perspectives. Maybe the things that I was learning was maybe not, for sure it was not the same things that you were learning, but it was the same platform and we were seeing the same thing
Hmm.
in a different perspective. And that's
Yeah.
amazing how the power of the online learning and the
Hmm.
internet, for me it was one of the influence to become an endodontist was to see those kind of people like you, Terry
Hmm.
Pancook, um,
Yeah.
a lot, Sergio Nicola. There was like
A lot of
hundreds
a lot
of
of
heroes.
famous
Yeah,
people
yeah,
started from this forum. Uh, of course, as you know, platforms and like this and forums can become a little bit complicated as they grow up, and there are
yeah,
a lot of egos between dentists, and sometimes they fight. Some people move out of the platform, some other join in, but overall it's especially if you see this at the time frame of early 2000, before Facebook. It was a great experience for all of us and a great way of communicating uh, microscope endodontics throughout the whole world, and be able to exchange ideas and share techniques and protocols with other
yeah.
people from
I
all over the world. And it was really, really inspiring and an amazing time back then.
And how did you become a educator and a speaker? It was an ambition that you had already, or your idea was just to become a good clinical endodontist and being in your clinic doing clinical work, or did you have always the ambition to share with others and to become a rock star of endodontics?
It was never my intention. I mean, everything just happened in the right timing, I believe. My first lecture, international lecture in English, that I was really stressed, was when I presented my thesis, master thesis, after graduating the University of Athens. I presented my research in International Association of Dental Research meeting in Sweden, in Gothenburg, and I think this one was in 2003. I think 2002 or 2003, something like that. It's many years ago. So this was the first time that I lectured in English, and I enjoyed traveling, and but I never had in the back of my mind that I would like to become a international lecturer and travel all around the world and do this. I mean, I didn't have a, a, any clue that you can actually do this. You can travel the world with lecturing endodontics. So what happened is that in 2008 or 9, in the initial stages of YouTube, when YouTube was first launched, I decided to create a channel in YouTube and upload endodontic videos of different clinical scenarios and how I was trying to solve different clinical problems under my microscope. And I tried to make these videos very educative for the people. So to create like a stepwise approach, how to manage different kind of complications or different kind of treatments in clinical endodontics. And back then it was, nowadays for people that are watching this podcast, this might seem very common and not like, I mean, everybody's doing that. But back then it was nothing. I mean, the YouTube was a channel for music or for some video
Yeah, there
clips.
was no content. Yeah, there
No,
was no
yeah,
content on YouTube.
and
Yeah, I know your channel because I saw every video several times.
thank you,
So for me, it
thank
was
you.
like gold information to see. I remember even the animations and the subtitles in yellow.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, I tried hard to learn how to edit the videos. So I bought some softwares and get some training myself. Actually, I discovered everything, how it works. And I managed to edit videos, add some music back then, add some uh,
yeah,
lines, some words explaining what I was doing in the video. And actually, this channel had it was quite successful back then. A lot of people contacted me and starting sharing their problems and discussing the clinical problems with them. And together with the Roots emailing list and the YouTube channel, I started communicating with a lot of important people in the endodontic specialty around the world. So actually, we became a kind of friends, online friends, people that we never met in person. We felt that we were connected through endodontics, because you know the endodontic problems, we may live in different countries, different cultures, different part of the world, but the endodontic problems are the same everywhere.
yeah,
No matter where I travel, the clinical problems are the same. The clinical problems that the doctors are facing are always the same. So we have like this common way of communicating with other endodontists around the world. And this is how everything started. And it seems like some people that we became online friends were really, really important professors from around the world. And this is how I got my first invitation to lecture outside of Greece as an invited speaker by the Brazilian team, Gustavo de Deus back then, Carlos Murgel, and I think it was also
Mario Zuolo,
yeah, yeah. They were organizing a congress in 2011 in Brazil.
Marco
Marco
Versiani
Versian,
from the
yeah,
yeah,
but
Leandro Pereira.
Leandro Pereira. So all these people,
Yeah,
I knew the names through the emailing list, but I never met them in person. So when they invited me to be a part of the Roots Summit in 2011 or 12 in Foz do
yeah,
Iguaçu, Brazil, I immediately accepted. So I went there, and this was a life-changing trip for me. I mean, this was the first time I meet in person with all the important people of the specialty, exchanging ideas, lecturing together, having fun together, and having a lot of adventures that I cannot disclose in this podcast together.
yeah, yeah,
And, you know, uh, the way I see it, everything was so simple back then. I mean, if you go, I mean, because maybe some young endodontists are watching this podcast right now. So, you know, if you go outside of your country and lecture, you have to, there are two roads, I mean, two choices, two options that you might run into. One option is that your lecture, nobody will like it. So everybody will be polite and they will say, thank you for coming here and lecture. And you go back home and then you never get an invitation again. So the other option is that some people will like your lecture and they will come to you after the lecture and they will invite you to other events. So as simple as that, this is how everything started. So after my lecture there, I got connected to a lot of people. It seems that they liked my lecture. Some people invited me to other countries, so I went to other countries, and I would like back then also to practice my lecturing in English because you know I'm Greek. It wasn't very easy for me, at least in the beginning, to lecture in another language. So I spent a lot of effort in the early days to try to figure it out how to create a lecture of 1 or 2 hours in English. And I went a lot of traveling. I did a lot of traveling, going lecturing in English just to practice my lecturing habits and, of course, to
And
travel.
Antonis, sorry, let me just ask you. I know that I saw a lot of lectures from you. I
Mhm.
don't know, but at least at least 4 or 5. So I think I have an idea, and they are very clinical. And I
Mhm.
imagine that this is very appealing for everybody because you have also scientific background. So the recipe is always trying to mix evidence based
Evidence and clinic.
information with clinical tips and clinical reality.
I would
And
like
I
to
think you
define, you know, I would like to define myself as a clinician. I mean, I'm full-time clinician with a lot of love and to a lot of love to the researchers and a lot of admiration to them. And I always try to study the literature and see if these things that I read can be applied in the clinical situation. Sometimes you read some things that if you apply them clinically, they don't work, or at least you need to keep a critical mind whatever you do in the clinical situation to be able to have the best available evidence at the moment you are practicing your techniques. I mean, whatever is that you are doing in endodontics. So being able to combine uh, the available evidence with the everyday clinical problems and the solutions you might find, it's the best combination to drive you forward and make you a better doctor.
And is do you know if there was like one lecturer or one situation that you were in the seat seeing the lecture, and you thought like, okay, I want to incorporate this in my lecture when you were
Oh,
beginning? Is there was someone that inspired you?
in the beginning, almost everybody I felt captivated by all lectures of other people. I mean, all the big professors were so inspiring. I cannot, I don't have one to tell you. I mean, I've attended lectures of Clifford Ruddle, that we are very good friends, of Terry Pankow, Carlos Murgel, Gustavo De Deus, all these people. I mean, they were all to me, in the early stages, it was like magic. I mean, to be able to see how they how they form the lectures and how they present. It gives you ideas how to create your own lecturing technique and your own, so how to create your own slides. One thing that it's really, really important, and I tried since the beginning of my lecture, is I always tried to lecture with my own content. So I was getting ideas from different lecturers around the world, combining these ideas, but the content of my lecture, I would like always to create the content. So all my
Yeah,
lecture, I use only my cases, my videos, together with the research of the evidence coming from the research of other people, or even some research project that I'm involved. I always use them in my lecturing. But I think for the young people that are watching this podcast, it's very, very important to create your own content. Create.
yeah,
I mean,
for
I
sure.
never like to, actually, I never did it. I never liked the lectures that a company gives the slides to the lecturer, and
Yeah,
all the lecturers, they show similar slides coming from a company. And usually,
yeah,
I always like lecturing with clinical videos and cases better than graphics and drawings. I mean, you can,
yeah.
you
I
know
understand.
in graphic everything can work, but in the clinical situation is not the same as the graphic. So still remember all some files going around the curvature and reaching to the apex, and all of the sudden the root canal was completely filled. Very nice graphic. But in the real situation, it wasn't very easy, especially in the early days of endodontics and the early days of nickel titanium rotary instrumentation. Getting to the apex of a highly curved canal was so difficult and so risky. I mean,
Yeah, nowadays we live in times that the files, the evolution of the
oh my
files
God,
is amazing. You can
we,
choose whatever the taper and the tip that you want to put on a root canal, and you can do it. And
we have
back then,
fantastic
it was very
instruments,
difficult.
fantastic instruments
Yeah,
nowadays. Yeah. We live in an exciting.
you are very sorry, you are very well known for using martensitic files because
Mhm.
you started, I would say, since the beginning, or at least nowadays we talk a lot about control memory files
I
and
think I
martensitic
was,
files and heat
yeah,
treatments. But you
yeah.
were one of the first endodontists, at least lecturing in these kind of files. Can you share with us a little bit how, when did you try the first time these martensitic files?
Mhm.
What made them special in your eyes and in your hands? And
Okay.
how was the process?
I will take you back to a journey of rotary nickel titanium instrumentation through time. So we
Yeah,
are now in the age of 2011, and almost globally, all the endodontic community is treating cases with ProTaper Universal back then. That used to be
true.
made out of conventional nickel titanium. And it was the variable tapers that was really innovative back then. And actually, it was a huge success. And almost uh, globally, 90% of endodontists I knew, they were using this system. At this time, I made a trip in my first visit to IDS exhibition in Cologne. And there was a Greek friend of mine that told me, Antonis, come with me. There is a lady I want you to meet, and they are launching a new innovative file system for endodontics. I said, okay. I mean, everybody's using ProTaper. Why should I search for another system? I'm happy with my ProTaper Universal. And then all of a sudden, I find myself in the Coltin booth back then. Coltin, Roeco, and Hygienic. It was all in one booth. And when I got there, I say, okay, I know you guys from cotton pellets and rubber dam kits, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that you are producing files. And then I met for the first time Barbara Mueller that explained to me an innovative rotary system for root canal instrumentation. It was called HighFlex CM back then, Control Memory HighFlex CM. And so I took a box from there, said, okay, I will try and give you my feedback. So when I returned back to Athens, I opened up the pack and I took out the HighFlex CM, and I noticed that when I curve this file with my fingers, the file doesn't spring back. It doesn't have restoring force. So this was kind of shocking to me. I mean, it was the only file available in the market back then that could do that. And by knowing that the problem when you are dealing with especially curved canals or double curvatures, the difficulty is to make a file with restoring force follow the anatomy. For the first time, I find myself having an instrument that can follow the anatomy no matter how curved was that. I mean, I could create a double curvature in the file in the room. And I said, this is very interesting, very different than what I used to be doing all this time, and actually of what I was taught in my residency. All the files that we used in the residency back in the early 2000 was conventional nickel titanium. So everything you bend it springs back. So for the first time, I take this first package of HighFlex CM and I find the perfect case. A double curvature comes to my clinic and I said, this is the right time to try this new file system. And all of a sudden, I realized that I could follow extreme anatomical pathways with this kind of technology. So I contact Barbara and Coltin people again, asking them to give me more information about the metallurgy, what is happening. And at the moment, I didn't know a lot of stuff about nickel titanium. I thought all nickel titanium files are the same. The alloy, it's the same. I didn't know anything about heat treatments, anything about martensitic, austenitic files, and the difference or the effect of temperature in that can have in the files. So I start studying a lot about metallurgy. I got some help from good professors around the world that they were doing research on nickel titanium instruments. I almost learned the Max Padek book by heart in order to understand
Yeah.
how the instrument works and what is the effect of the different designs and the tips and the angles and the flutes and the tapers of the file, and then combine all this knowledge with the new back then heat treatment. So I asked from the company to send me back more files to try, because I really like the way they behave inside the challenging anatomies. And I start shifting my whole instrumentation procedure to Martensitic files uh, since 2011. And actually, what happened is, after 6 months that I've been using HiFlex CM files, I got a great invitation by Coltin to be a part of a key opinion leader meeting. To tell you the truth, I didn't know what a key opinion leader meeting means back then. So I said, this sounds very exciting. Key opinion leader meeting, it's a big thing. It seemed to be like a big thing. I say, okay, you are inviting me to be a part of a big event, and as a main speaker, actually. So I said, okay. In the beginning, I was a little bit afraid, a little bit reluctant, because they asked me to lecture about 4 hours how I work with Martensitic files that used to be new back then. And actually, I was the only lecturer of endo in this opinion leader meeting, with a lot of professors, and it was in Latin America, in a fantastic place in Cancun, in Mexico. And this was actually the starting point of my lecturing career. I mean, I traveled there, worked very hard on the 4-hour lecture, try to explain the doctors how they can take advantage of this new heat treatment of nickel titanium alloy, and the martensitic nature of the file, and the control memory files. And actually, my approach back then was to explain to them what are the possibilities. I mean, what they can do with these new instruments in all their challenging cases that they will be facing in their clinics. And it seems that after this opinion leader meeting, a lot of people liked the lecture, and everything started. I mean, I started getting invitations from all around the world. Please come share your techniques with us in Asia, in South Africa, in United States. And I traveled, and I have to tell you, it's been a journey since 2012, a fantastic journey all around the world, traveling with Coltin. Sometimes I was invited also by associations or by universities to give an unsponsored lecture about my main topic back then was how to use martensitic files. And actually, for many, many years, like 6 or 7 years, there was the only available martensitic files to work. All the other files were conventional nickel titanium with restoring force. So this made me a kind of an expert in martensitic rotary instrumentation, because I was the first guy taking advantage of this advanced metallurgy. And yes, I have to tell you, I traveled many, many countries, met a lot of people. I still remember I traveled to your university also,
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
Lisbon. I think this is when we met, when you were doing your residency. I
I
traveled to
think I met you in the European Society
in the
Congress
meeting
in Lisbon.
in Lisbon. Okay.
I
First
think
time
it was in
in
2013.
2000.
Yeah,
Okay,
with Diogo Guerreiro and all the
okay.
roots
Yeah,
people.
and all the roots
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah,
all the roots people back then. But you know,
yeah,
it's
and
been a fantastic journey so far. I mean, fantastic experience traveling all around the world, meeting all these fantastic people, all these fine people. We have great people in the specialty of endodontics all around the world. The people are amazing. I received
yeah,
so much friendship and
and
love from
Antonis,
the people, and I can
you
only
are
be
such
grateful.
a you are such a nice guy that I understand that in every place that you pass, you make a new friend and someone that remembers like we have to invite him to come back
Thank you.
here
Thank you.
because you are very nice as a person and a very good lecturer in terms of the your clinical expertise
Thank you.
shows in the lectures and that's very inspiring and your clinical abilities led you to the science. So sometimes people come from science to the clinical world.
Mhm.
I would say that you come from the clinical world and you touch sometimes the scientific fields and
Yes.
you have sometimes in this podcast I ask like some small tips could if you could share like a 30-second tip, clinical tip that can help our listeners. But I will open an exception here in this podcast with you, and maybe I would ask you to explain like in simple words the technique that you are more known as
Mhm.
the TCA technique that I think is a very good technique when we are starting our endodontic path because it is very secure. But even when we are more experienced, it's a technique that I have always in the back of my mind and I use in certain situations. And I think it would be a privilege to have like the guy that developed this technique to share with us a little bit your instrumentation technique.
Okay. So I will tell you how this technique started. The whole technique started from a very difficult case that was referred to my clinic, like a double curvature, very extreme. It was the most difficult case, I mean, that I ever managed. And I was trying to find a safe way of enlarging this complicated canal system. So, if you want to think about safety in instrumentation, the biggest fear we all have is to break a file inside the, the difficult anatomy. The second, after this, the second, the other problem, big problem, is not to straighten the canal and pathway and be able to follow. So by having in my armamentarium control memory files without restoring force, I solve the problem of transportation because these files they
Yeah,
don't have any kind of restoring force. So no matter how cared the canal is, they will follow because they don't have any restoring force to guide them to another direction. But this will not solve the problem of file breakage. Maybe the file can follow the anatomy, but you need also in very difficult curvatures of very abrupt with a small radius, a big angle, a small radius of curvature. You also need to develop a safe technique because you can have an instrument that can follow all these crazy, anatomies, but you still can break it inside the challenging anatomy if you are not following a safe technique. So what is the safest thing you can do? So this is how I started my thinking. What was the safest thing for a novice, for an undergraduate student that deals first time with endo, with a rotary or engine-driven instrumentation? You know, I still remember when I first tried rotary files in the University of Athens, and I activate the file, get inside the canal, and the anatomy all of a sudden tried to drag the file inside the anatomy, and I felt that the file will break, so I immediately removed the file. So by having this experience in my mind, I said, okay, what do you do in order not to break the file? If you are afraid you will break the file, after the first activation, you need to remove the file. And why is that? Because when you activate the file inside the canal, the file will start cutting dentin. So the flutes of the file will be packed with dentin, right? This is why you feel a resistance. So you try to push the file to go to length, and you immediately feel the resistance. Once you feel the resistance, the normal clinical protocol that I was taught and everybody was using was the pecking movement. So when you feel
Yeah.
resistance, redraw your hand one more time, 2, 3 pecks, and then remove the file to irrigate the canal and clean the flutes of the file. Pecking movement can work in simple anatomies, but in the anatomies that I was facing in my clinic, and actually this is the case that was published in the International Endodontic Journal in 2015, this technique would never work, because if your file goes below the curvature and you activate the file and then you start pecking, the chances are you're gonna break the file. And why the file breaks? Because by doing the pecking movement, you are not cleaning the flutes of the file. The flutes of the file are packed with debris very easily, and if you don't remove the file outside of the canal to check that the file is not distorted and to clean the flutes of the file, you leave the debris inside the canal, and what actually you are doing with the pecking movement, you are trying to push a file without cutting efficiency, because the flutes are packed with debris, to go deeper. And this creates huge torsional loading with the canal wall, and the file can break. So I said, what will be the safest way of going in this case? First of all, I need to create patency. I wouldn't try to use a rotary file in a complicated case of highly curved canal without getting in the apex with small, tiny hand files, 606, 08, maybe 1002. After creating a reproducible glide path with stainless steel hand files, the second thing that I was thinking in order to use a rotary file was safety. I want to be safe. And what is the safest thing to do? To remove the file after the first stroke. So if instead of pecking movement, you do one stroke and remove the file to clean, this is the safest you can do, because you always clean the flutes of the file and check the flutes of the file. I know it takes a lot of time, because
Yeah.
sometimes we want to be fast, but it's more safe. And in challenging cases like the case that I was facing, uh, I, safety was my main concern, not time. I mean, I could prolong my treatment as long as it's safe. So I started working with my control memory files with single stroke and remove the file outside of the canal. And all of a sudden, I realized that after each stroke, the point of the curvature was released more and more, and the control memory file could negotiate deeper and deeper inside the anatomy by following the anatomy and without risking of breaking files. And why you don't risk breaking files? Because after the first stroke that the flutes are always clean from debris, you remove the file to irrigate. So by working this way, I managed to reach the apex for the first time in a very, very challenging case with rotary files. And actually, I managed to enlarge a very difficult canal to 2504 and obturate this challenging delacerated glide path with 2504 and have a fantastic result. And this was my first case. And I said, okay, doing, following a technique once, if it works, it's great, but it doesn't mean anything. You need to
Yeah.
be able
Consistency.
to consistency to reproduce the same protocol and give you the same good result. So I started in all my difficult cases working with single stroke, and I realized that uh, I, 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 I didn't break files anymore. I was always following the anatomy sheets. I was using Martensitic files, flexible files, control memory characteristic. And actually, I started posting crazy cases. Now we are in the time of Facebook. Roots Forum shifted to Facebook group. I was one of the first administrator of Roots Forum in the Facebook group, together with Ken Serota back then, and Freddy Belliard was also involved. And after this, everything changed. But I started posting crazy cases, crazy anatomies that I could follow with Martensitic files, and starting making a case in favor of this kind of heat treatment that gives increased flexibility to our file system, and we can follow the anatomy. Nowadays, everything became flexible, everything became Martensitic heat treatment that creates different uh, titanium oxides in the surface of the instrument, so we can have different colors like gold, blue,
Yeah.
yellow, or three colors in the same file. So now we have a lot of control memory files to work, but you have to understand that in the back in time in 2000, from 2011 to 2016, 17, um, Coltin Highflex system was the only available
Yeah.
Martensitic file to work.
And
And
it was a little bit outlier. It was different from the
yeah,
other
yeah, of
systems
course,
because of
of course.
the Martin Citic. I
Mhm.
would say that in your technique it's counterintuitive, because I learned like you never start with an instrument that is without movement inside the canal. I
Mhm.
always thought that it was more secure to go with the
Rotation
instrument
inside.
in rotation and
Mhm.
not stopped. And I was very afraid to start a movement with the file engaged in the canal. For me, it was a idea that I had, and I think it was disruptive in that sense, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people like me were taught that it's important to go gently, doing brushing
Mhm.
movements without sticking the file stopped inside the canal. But on the other hand, you have a lot of control, as you said. You can work each millimeter of the canal at one time, and
This is
you are always with with a new instrument starting each millimeter,
you
so
are correct.
you don't
And
accumulate.
you know,
Yeah,
sometimes in crazy cases, when I want to be completely in control and don't risk anything, I use my control memory files with hand. So I preserve my files, I guide my files, my rotary files, but with my
yeah,
hand,
yeah,
I guide them below the curvature, take an X-ray to check that I'm in the right position, and I don't remove the file. I just connect intraorally the head of the handpiece and then activate, and this is how you conquer the curve. I mean, you all of a sudden you enlarge. You just need one small stroke, one tiny stroke to remove a little bit of restricted dentin, and then the curve is smooth and ready for all your instruments to follow. You know, endodontics is not a big business. It's a tiny business. We are dealing with
yeah.
millimeters and small millimeters. So half millimeter of dentin removal might be enough to be able to follow the curve and solve the case for you. So with this technique,
Yeah,
I always want to be in control and activate cut dentin from specific points that I know if I remove the dentin from there, the curvature will be smooth and I will be always able to follow the challenging pathways.
yeah. I would like to ask you because we talked about the CM files, and then there was a new generation, also a little bit different from all the files that were available in the market in 2015, I think, or 2016.
I think
You had like
16. Mhm.
the EDM generation that is disruptive. The way the file is manufactured is different from the conventional. And what was your opinion? You started liking since the beginning, or you had so much love with the CM
Oh,
files that you get some trouble to get used to the new generation? What was the transition for you with the this new file, and the main file that had shape that was very different from the CM generation?
all of the sudden, you know, when they launched the EDM, high flex EDM, I was a little bit skeptic in the beginning. Uh, what how these files will behave inside complicated anatomies, and but the moment I tried them, I immediately shifted to EDM. Why? Because they managed to combine the flexibility of the Martin-City control memory files with the huge cutting efficiency of EDM. I mean, I love the the how easy was it was to cut dentin. You know, you can increase the safety quotient of your instrumentation if you increase the cutting efficiency of the instrument. And now I have an instrument with extreme cutting efficiency, but without losing the flexibility that is uh, uh, one of the most important characteristics that a file should have to follow challenging anatomies. And this was just amazing. In the beginning, I had a little bit of problem with the sizes because, especially, I you know, I always like ISO size and
Yeah,
color coding. So everybody, and it was very easy for me to teach a sequence that follows the ISO standardization. because everybody in the endodontic world is familiar with ISO. So if you move outside of ISO, if you change tapers and numbers, or you skip some sizes, it can become complicated for the doctors. But you have to understand that the cutting efficiency of the EDM actually is so great that you don't need to follow the normal path of one size after the other, like the ISO standardization process. These files can kind of skip some sizes. So that's why Coltin managed to reduce the number of the files needed for a difficult anatomy to 3 files instead of having to go through the whole sequence of HiFlex CM with 5 files. So at this time, it was also really important to reduce the number of files needed to give initial shape to a canal. Of course,
Yeah.
it was, if you remember back then, it was the time of the single file system that can simplify the instrumentation procedure. Um, of course, for marketing reasons, a single file system can be a great marketing tool and sound very promising to the
Yeah.
doctor and very easy and very simple. However, one thing you have to understand is that in an easy canal, any kind of file system can work as a single file system. I mean, if you choose a size and a taper that is very close related to the initial size and taper of the canal you are dealing, every file system can work as a single file system. So it's just a marketing scenario,
Yeah.
marketing trick. However,
I
in simple anatomies, we don't have problems. The problem is in difficult anatomies. And in difficult anatomies, it's never a single file system. You need a technique and you need a predictable sequence that you know if you take this sequence and you follow the steps, you should always be able to do it. So that's why I was extremely happy when Coltin, we managed with Coltin to gather together 3 files and create the max curve sequence that actually it was back then an innovative idea to launch a dedicated sequence for very difficult canals. So people know if
yeah.
they have a difficult anatomy, they order a dedicated sequence to, to match their difficult case. And with this sequence, I still manage uh, most of my tough cases.
Yeah, I think there's always a struggle because for the general dentist, the people tend to like one system that is the same for all the cases, and I think that I imagine that you love to have options and to have like dozens of files and to choose in the right anatomy the sequence that you prefer, but that's not the normal dentists, so to say, and the industry is always trying to see
Simplify.
those both publics and to simplify because the majority of people want to simplify, and
I
now
know.
you have an upgrade not in terms of generation because this new sequence, the OGSF system, it's in the same way as the EDM. So
Mhm.
I think it's a small upgrade. It's not like a version completely different, but I was very happy because I'm not a power user from Coltin so for a long time as you, and for me, I never liked a lot the 1005 file, and I liked the 1503. and I
Mhm.
was very happy because the 1503 survived to this new sequence, and the 1005 not really. And I really liked the 2005. The 20 file for me, it was a great file, and it has a slight difference, but I would say that it's still in the packaging. And now shifting the standard for a 3004,
Mhm.
and changing the format, for me it was also a good idea. So I was very happy with the files that the Coltin chose. And what was your adaptation, or how did you see this new this upgrade, let's say, to the system?
I think one thing I could say about the new system, because it's also very new for me. It's just became available the last five,
Yeah, months or weeks. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
6 months. Maybe when they launched it, definitely what I can say for sure that it flows better for for the majority of anatomies. Uh, the only thing that I would like also to ask you, just try again the 1005, the new version, because there was the 1005 is nowadays the 1005 is one also of my favorite files,
Okay.
especially what happened. People had problem with the 1005, the previous version. The new 1005 that is made out of 1 millimeter wire is a completely different file.
Okay.
So for some cases, I still like to use a 1005 before using in combination with the 1503. 1005 with 1503, because sometimes with 1503 you can get if the canal is fits very well with the 1503, you can have
Yeah,
a little bit of
you need to
wedging.
flare a little bit.
You need to flare
Yeah,
a
to
little
have a
bit.
little
Yes,
bit more. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I
So,
understand.
but
I
the
will give it a
combination will
try.
be for you understand for a difficult cases will be perfect. But definitely the new orifice opener is amazing. The sizing and the new 18045 file, the shaping file is a fantastic file, as long as you are really careful not to damage the tip, because the 18
Yeah,
tip, if you hit it in if you knock the tip in the canal entrance, it can flip and get damaged and you can break the tip. So one of the main benefits of working with tactile activation is that you take care of the tip of the flexible martensitic files. Why? Because you are not activating the file outside of the canal. First, make sure that the tip of the file is not damaged and inside the trajectory, and then you activate it. It's completely safe. HiFlex will follow any kind of crazy anatomy without any kind of problems. But
yeah, it's
definitely for the
really
majority of the
interesting.
cases, the OGSF sequence will flow uh, better in the hands of the especially the general dentist, and they will have an uneventful enlargement of challenging canals up to an evidence-based size of 3004, and then they will get a 3004 GP cone to obturate with a favorite sealer, and it will be
Yeah,
very
I
easy.
also liked a lot this new update. I would like to make you a quick fire round of questions, just to for you to answer one or two in one word.
Mhm.
But you, of course, you can explain if you feel the need for it. Single session or multiple sessions? A classical
Nowadays,
question.
most of my cases single session.
Okay, warm or cold obturation?
I cannot help. I'm a warm guy. You know, I was trained with a warm vertical
Yeah,
conversation and back feeling, and it's so simple and easy in my hands. It's like seconds,
automatic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
automatic.
I
I
understand.
tried,
Patency.
I tried the single cone techniques, everything. I like to try everything to get my own idea of how it works. And I find a lot of difficulty with single cone techniques and bioceramic
Yeah,
sealers to control the extrusion of the materials. I'm very comfortable with my worm technique, so really,
yeah. You'll keep with the
I
worm
still,
technique.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting the hot modified technique from Alfredo Yandolo.
Mhm.
I think it could be a middle for endodontists like yourself that don't want to discard the
Yeah,
worm
yeah.
technique. You can be in the
Combined.
middle, in the yeah, more or less warm and cold technique. So patency always or never.
No, always. I always patency, especially uh, uh, if you do retreatments and cases of or any kind of treatment with apical periodontitis. I think it's proven in our literature that the single most important intraoperative factor related to a successful outcome is to achieve technical patency to the apical third. If the canal is patent to the last apical third, everything will flow easier for me.
Yeah, I agree. Preferred way to agitate irrigants. What is your preferred way?
Uh, to tell you the truth, I mean, I have to be honest, I'm not completely sure that I have to agitate the irrigant. This, I mean, if we are talking about minimal invasive shapes that are very popular nowadays, I really believe if you go minimal invasive shaping, you really need to improve the distribution of your irrigant, and you need to use to agitate the irrigant. But if you go to larger shapes that your needle can reach to the apical third, it's not so important. For minimal shapes, it is very, very important. To tell you the truth, I would like to have a erbium laser in my clinic and
Yeah,
agitate the irrigant. Of course, it's very expensive investment just for just for activation
yeah,
of the
yeah.
irrigant.
It's not cost effective. It's not
It
cost effective. I
is not
understand. Yeah,
so you can. I mean, my preferred way, if I want to activate the irrigant, I would choose a plastic tip like Eddy to activate, or a sonic activation device, or of course a laser device if you have it available would be a fantastic idea to
yeah,
clean the root canal system. However, you have to keep in your mind uh, that, especially if you read the new quality guidelines, S3 guidelines of the European Society of Endodontology, that adjunctive therapy is not uh, correlated with like activation with the outcome of the treatment. We don't have evidence to support that activation does really make a huge
yeah. A
difference
difference.
in the
Yeah,
outcome. Okay, but it feels like we're doing a better
yeah.
disinfection, and we try to do the best for our patient. If we
Everybody likes to see bubbles.
Everybody likes to see bubbles. I mean, especially I believe it might be really important in some conservative instrumentation techniques that I see from some very skilled dentists, that actually they are finishing their enlargement to a glide path file. and don't try to
Yeah,
preserve more dentin. If you want to do this kind of root canal treatment, I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you want to go like this, you need to have also the matching
yeah,
activation and irrigation device to be compatible with minimal saves. And this might be erbium laser activation device.
yeah.
If you do a
Maybe in the
conventional,
future it will be cheaper, the laser, and maybe in 5 years everybody will have in their
maybe, of course,
clinical.
we need to see the long-term results of this kind of treatments, minimal invasive treatments with
Yeah,
minimal
yeah, it is
saves.
cutting edge. In this present moment, it is a cutting edge
Yeah, it is a bit, yeah.
approach,
Hmm.
and it has not passed the test of time.
Yeah.
Let's see in the future.
Let's see in the future. I
And
mean,
yeah,
you adapt your techniques according to new technology that comes out, new knowledge. We need to adapt our techniques. I mean, we are not
yeah,
using
yeah, yeah,
the same things that we were taught in the university exactly the same way as we were taught. I mean, we adapt, modify, and create our own way of working by the final judgment, it's always follow up. You can do
yeah.
whatever, everything you want in endodontics. Just show me the follow up. And
Yeah, but
and
sometimes it's difficult to understand by the clinical experience, even with your follow up. It's an individual. In terms of data, you don't know for sure. But I think it's the beauty of endodontics. It's also a little bit of not knowing what makes really the difference,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things that we don't know yet, and people argue a lot and discuss, and everybody has its own beliefs, and you have amazing people, very intelligent, with solid arguments on each side. And for me it's always a pleasure to see people fighting in the good way, in the healthy way, discussing different points of view that are well fundamented, because you have a lot of literature, and you have a lot of scientific data that sometimes it's not current, and you can argument for one side or another. And for me, I always like to see this kind of debates, and it's a very Greek thing, the debates and having the questions. And I always like to see this kind of debates online or in person. Sometimes in endodontist meetings, people like to share thoughts that for me are sometimes more interesting than the lectures,
Mhm.
the post lecture, and the lobby conversation. Sometimes we can learn a lot. I will
Yeah,
just
I
want to
agree.
to, to make you a final question, because it's a pleasure to talk with you. You have a lot of passion for endodontics, and we can notice in your way of speaking. And we could be here hours and hours
Yeah, of
discussing
course.
microscopes and bioceramics and cones and files and history of endodontics. You touched a little bit of Max Paden. We could talk a lot about that, but let's focus. And I would like to shift a little bit the conversation, because we know that dentistry is a very tough profession. It's very physical, and being a lecturer also, you have a lot of time in the airports, a lot of time waiting in the hotels. It's a lot of waiting time, and it's physically very demanding, and mentally it's very demanding. And I would like to know if you have like a daily routine, or if you have some kind of personal practice to help you to get the endurance to go case after case, lecture after lecture. Do you try to do you have some kind of tips did you learn in these years of lecturing all over the world, to have approaches to have more quality of life, and to try to endure all the challenge that you face?
I always like to keep every day 1 to 2 hours for myself. I enjoy going running when it's the weather is beautiful in Greece. I always like to go for a short run, like 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers run. This, gives me the energy I need to handle the rest of the working day. And um, during the days, usually I never work in weekends, but I never work on patients weekend. But actually what I do that I really enjoy, I like to always think of innovative ideas of education and workshop ideas, and to design models to teach people how to manage complicated cases. So I like simulation condition. I actually, this is my I like this thing with the phantom heads, the teeth, plastic teeth, printing different anatomies, see how everything can be combined. So that's why in my clinic I made a small room for training, like a small group that I work also with a Portuguese guy, Hugo Sousa Diaz, that is coming,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we do this canal blockage course. Actually, this is not like a job for me. It's like a passion. It's like I always like to share different techniques and ways of managing canal blockage scenarios, and I always try to find perfect, ideal models to practice how to become better and better for our patient. And this fills up a lot of my free time. Actually, this is what I do in my free time: running and going and managing all this brainstorming about simulation training in endodontics.
Yeah.
But also, eventually, it will come a time that you will have to enjoy yourself with a family. So I enjoy my family, my kids, and like to go out to party a lot, dance a lot. uh, I used to drink a lot. Now I stopped that. I mean, I'm moving to uh, less alcohol in my life and better quality of life.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
So
it's it's important. I would like just to add some notes. The canal blockage course, the feedback I'm getting is always very nice. So I look forward to attend one of these days.
it will be
I
fantastic.
never. Yeah, I never had the you are not scheduling at the right dates for me. You should consult me before doing the courses in Portugal. And Hugo Sousa Dias also has a lot of passion for lecturing and to teaching and to share knowledge from endodontics. So you are an amazing team, and the plastic teeth are getting better and better. Also, you are helping
Yes.
a lot, some companies to try to achieve different shapes, and it will be helpful for us that like to teach endodontics, because one of the problems is that natural teeth are different for each student. Also, the conditions sometimes are very difficult, and it's great. I like to teach in the plastic tooth, the molar, to find the MB2. At least I know that everybody has the same canal, and that we are in the same page, finding the MB2. And I also I'm trying to drink less alcohol, and I think that
Ah,
and do some running,
that, that-
also.
that's really hard for a Portuguese. Eh? It's really
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
for
yeah, it's in our culture. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's in the
But
culture. I mean, the wine there is fantastic, and every time I visit nowadays Portugal, I have troubles staying away from your fantastic
yeah, yeah,
wine.
yeah, I will try to drink alcohol just when you come here, and
Okay,
then we
okay,
both of us just drinking that occasion,
okay. You
and
will
and
save a
maybe,
bottle for us. We
yeah,
will share.
or
Huh?
maybe we'll do a running to earn
Okay,
the possibility to drink a wine. Antonis, it
fantastic.
was a really pleasure to talk with you. I would like to thank you a lot for the time that you gave me, and the nice way. You're always a nice guy, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you. You are a very simple clinician, and it's very easy to talk to you. And I feel that I'm in person talking with you, because you are a very nice and very skillful clinician, and I follow your work for a long time, and it's almost a dream come true to have the time to spend with you and to talk a little bit with you, and the
Thank you very
path
much.
that you did with Coltin, that is sponsoring this podcast. And also I would like to thank them, because it's important to support this kind of internet activities. And both of you, Coltin and Antonis, you've been great in the world of endodontics in very innovative way. And for me, it's a very special podcast, this episode, and I would like to thank you, Antonis.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It was a great experience to spend 1 hour talking with you about endodontics, and looking forward to the next time we meet and share this bottle of wine. Don't forget,
Yeah,
Portuguese wine.
no,
We will share one
it will
bottle
be
of
noted.
Portuguese wine. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Antonis.
Thank you. Thank you.